Welcome to episode 283 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Justin Kelly and Savannah Knoop. They just co-wrote a semi-autobiographical film called J.T. LeRoy. It's a bizarre story about a woman who pretends to be a famous author, and it's based in part on Savannah's real life experience where she actually did this. So it's a fascinating story and one that they've successfully turned into a screenplay and then got it produced. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 283. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writers Justin Kelly and Savannah Knoop. Here is the interview. Welcome, Justin and Savannah, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you guys come from, and how did you kind of get to this point? And Savannah, why don't you go first, and then Justin can go after you.
I come from a mostly fine art background. At this point, I've reckoned with that. It's very interdisciplinary. I've always made clothes and done sort of movement. And then, so I guess it's a body practice ultimately. And through a party called Womone for many years in New York, and do sort of performance, sculpture, installation, and writing.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. Okay, Justin, how about you? What's your background?
My background is in film. I've always wanted to be a writer-director. I started off as a PA in the late 90s, went to film school, spent close to 15 years kind of assisting various writers, directors, producers, fell into the editing world, edited a couple of indie feature films, worked in the edit room on Milk, and, kind of all the while made short films, wrote scripts, tried to get things out there, and this collaboration with Savannah is my fourth film, and the third film is based off a true story.
Okay, perfect. So let's dig into your latest film, J.T. LeRoy, starring Kristen, Stewart, and Dern. Maybe to start out, you can just give us a quick pitch or logline. What is the premise of this film?
Well, it's based on an incredible true story about what is it's considered the greatest literary hoax of a generation, wherein two women pretended to be a very famous literary kind of wunderkind named J.T. LeRoy. He was a best-selling author, toured the world for 6 years, was photographed in Vanity Fair, Interview Magazine, wrote 3 books. One was turned into a film. He was this very kind of odd Warholian figure, and 6 years after his first big appearance, a reporter for the New York Times discovered that he didn't exist at all. It was the creation of Laura Albert, who wrote the books, and Savannah Knoop, who played him in public.
I see. So she, and I apologize, I didn't quite hear the name, but Savannah, so you took on this persona for her because she didn't necessarily want to be in the public eye? Was that sort of the gist of it to start?
Correct. And actually, the writer, Laura Albert, had been sort of writing under this pseudonym for many years and talking to people and sort of living part of her life over the phone as J.T. LeRoy before she asked
me to play this character. So it was maybe when the second book had come out.
I see.
Yeah.
So how did you guys get involved to turn this into a movie? Savannah, did you write like a memoir first so that the screenplay was based on your memoir, or did you guys just dig in and write the screenplay straight away?
So shortly after the unveiling in the New York Times that Justin had mentioned, I think it was in maybe about a year and a half later, it was a process of, for me, I wrote a memoir about it and had started the memoir, or had kind of initiated writing about it, because just to sort of untangle those 6 years and how I'd gotten from point A, which was sort of Laura had asked me to play this writer as a sort of one-time thing. Can you just show up? And then, it had sort of snowballed into, so from A to Z, how had you gotten from A to Z? And I had been there the whole time, but actually was sort of astonished at how complicated it had all become. And so writing the memoir was a process of untangling that. And then Justin and I met in San Francisco probably about 11 years ago, and we sort of together began this journey of adapting the experience, which was in the book, adapting the memoir into a screenplay.
I see. And so just give me a little context for your meeting. You're in San Francisco. Was it just sort of a random coincidental meeting and you struck up a friendship and that's how it went? Or was there some were you specifically looking for a director that might want to take this project on? Maybe just a little context with that.
Yeah, no, it was not, I was not looking for, it was definitely just through meeting each other over and over, and then sort of striking up conversations, getting along, meeting as friends first, and that initiated a conversation around adapting the film.
I see.
Yeah, and at that point, I hadn't made my first film at that point, so I had short films to show, and just kind of my thoughts on the memoir and how I think it could make a great film. And then let's just have a lot in common. Kind of, we're both in a similar kind of queer art world in San Francisco, so got along well and collaborated really well.
Yeah.
I see. So let's talk about the collaboration. Maybe you can kind of describe the writing of this screenplay. Did you guys sit in the same room? Did you outline first and then divide up the scenes and then get together and combine them? Maybe just kind of describe your collaborative process writing this screenplay.
Yeah, we started off writing together while we both lived in San Francisco, and for I would say close to a year or so, and started off outlining note cards. It was as great as it was to have the memoir as a kind of blueprint. It's of course incredibly complicated. Like there were chapters dedicated to certain segments of Savannah's life and/or trips that JT went on. But within those, things are talked about in the past, in the future. So it's kind of going through and breaking the entire memoir down into all of the the events at first, and then from that point through the next literally 8 years, during which of course we worked on other projects and I made other films, but
moved to different cities.
We would work by screen sharing over, at that time, I think iChat or Skype screen sharing, phone calls, would visit each other every now and then to work on it, and it was just paring down all of the information and the travel and the kind of tabloid version of the story into the real story, the heart of the story, which is, making a way more of a character piece about Laura and Savannah and how they pulled off the greatest literary hoax of a generation, but more importantly, why they did it.
Yeah. So once you guys were done with the script, what was your next step to actually turning it into a produced movie? Do you have a bunch of producers that you can send it to?
At the very beginning, no. Again, I had been working for other filmmakers for a long time, so I had people to give it to for sure, but at that time, pretty tricky to get off the ground as a first-time director. It could have been done for low budget, but not crazy low. So we did give it to someone prominent in, I would say, 2011, 2012, and kind of thought that that was going to be it. We'd be making it the next year, and all these people who say it takes 5 to 10 years to make a movie don't know what they're talking about. And naturally, 10 years later, it's kind of, each person we gave it to would give feedback. And again, so this is my third true story, and it's tricky because when you send a script out, you're not only getting feedback and judgment based on the script and the story, but about the true story.
Right.
And so, there are people who maybe felt betrayed by what went down in the story, or who wouldn't want to see it turn into a film. So it becomes tricky on multiple layers. So it took a while to kind of find the right team of people who believed in the story and fought for something greater than the
headline.
The headline, yeah.
How did you guys handle, and I want to talk about the feedback you were getting from the producers, but how did you guys handle differences when you guys were working on the script together? If Savannah had one idea, Justin had another idea, just how did you mediate those issues when you didn't necessarily agree on what was the proper way to write a scene or character or whatever?
Good question. That definitely happened a lot. It's been so long, it's funny to even think about it. I think we would just each argue our point and talk it through, and I feel like more often than not it would lead towards either going with the other person's idea or kind of finding meeting in the middle. Mm-hmm. But we were just kind of talking things through until someone either won or we agree to disagree.
Yeah. We would just wrestle,
arm wrestle.
But I think, it is sort of the mark of I think a really generative collaboration where you can sort of respectfully agree to disagree and come to some sort of meeting in the middle, or, one person sort of helps the other person to see why they think one point is whatever they're sort of arguing their point out. But to be able to go through that, definitely just sort of through the process, and still, I think it's a testament to the respect and sort of trust that a good collaboration gives you.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the notes you were getting back from these various producers. You're sending the script out. And Justin, as someone who's been through this a bunch of times, I'd be curious to get your take on it. And then Savannah, I'd be curious to get your take on it as well, since you're the one who actually lived this story. How faithful, how much of a commitment to being faithful to the true story do you have to make, as opposed to, I'm sure some of these producers' ideas, it wasn't necessarily how it actually happened, but it might make the story better. Justin, maybe talk through sort of from your perspective, and then again, I'd be curious to hear Savannah's perspective on that as someone who actually lived this story.
Yeah, well, I should say in terms of when I say producers' notes, it's really as I'm sure if we say get the script to a certain producer who we think could help us get the film made, it's pretty rare that they're going to give notes if they don't want it. It's either a yes or no.
Sure.
It's very rare. When we say producer notes, we're thinking of more so kind of producer friends. I had worked on
peers.
So peers, yeah.
Or mentors.
Yeah. So it's really and it's also pretty rare that that someone like that a producer, friend of a friend, whatever, say anything specific. It's more so like as an example, I can remember the first really, or maybe the fifth or so draft that we thought was very solid, a bit long, but so good about. They got into the hands of a friend who took us out to lunch to talk about it. And we were waiting for oh my God, this is incredible. When can I make this? And instead it was it's just not working. And so, we just kind of, it was more so broad strokes. And that particular meeting was about the fact that it was an incredible story, but it was focusing too much on the journey of JT and the travel. And this particular person wanted to see way more emotion and just strip away the travel. Do they have to go to 15 places? Can they just go to Paris and Cannes, that kind of thing. And then later on for the producers who we ended up teaming up with, very minimal notes, really more so thoughts here and there, and rarely ever came to the point of trying to push things that didn't actually happen, because Savannah and I had already done that ourselves, not in a way to where we're making anything up. Everything in the film is true, but we used to have probably 15 pages in Act 1, the purpose of which was to show that Savannah was kind of alone in San Francisco looking for something new, a little bit uncertain of what to do with their life, and it took a long time to realize that, you know what, that should actually just be one scene of Savannah arriving in San Francisco as a new resident of the city, when in fact she had been there for a couple years in the real story. So things like that, like, are just paring things down for the film. It's the same sentiment. It's even stronger when you do it that way. But we'd already been so open to taking liberties to make sure it's the best film it can be. So
I see.
It produces, yeah.
And you were okay with all this, Savannah?
I think almost in certain ways I feel like actually Justin held sort of respected the way the story had gone even more than me. I think maybe because the process of taking something that you lived through, and then, I don't know, it's almost like you just let it go. You sail what actually happened away, and you look at it from a distance, from the land, from the shore, and you're kind of like, so we had, I think Justin had mentioned something that's a good example, which is we had all this sort of background, and in reality, the story is I'm from a San Francisco family, and Laura and Jeff were part of my family, but then in the sort of compressed visual form of a film, we shortened it and got straight to the sort of emotional burn of it, which is that we made it so that Savannah moves to San Francisco, and Jeff, her brother, and Laura are the only people that she knows, and she's sort of obsessed with this, is that they are her world, and they shine bright in her life. And that was a kind of shorthand for, instead of having this warm-up of all of these different logistics, which actually don't matter. We were trying to get to the heart of the emotional trajectory of the characters.
I see. How can people see JT LeRoy? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yes, it comes out Friday, April 26th in select theaters, and also digital, VOD, on demand, etc.
Perfect.
There's info and tickets and everything on jtleroyfilm.com.
Okay, perfect. And that's my next question, is what's the best way for people to keep up with what you guys are doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll round up for the show notes.
Okay, yeah. The website's a great starter for the film, and then, individually, I guess as what happens now in 2019, it's mostly an Instagram connection. I'm at Justin Kelly, T-O Justin Kelly.
I am at Savat, SAVATTTE, but it's private, so you'll have to request.
Okay, I'll see if I can find those. Perfect. I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking with me today. Good luck with this film.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis. basis. So it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Ella Callahan. She just directed a horror film called Head Count. She's been working in the business for a number of years, mostly in the sound department, but now she's breaking out and directing as well. So be interviewing her about this film and how that all came together. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.